Welcome to the Lake District, where little Irish is about to celebrate a very special birthday. Its odometer about to roll over from 5 figures into 6 as it passes the 100,000 mile mark. But it's strange because that landmark is often frowned upon in automotive circles, isn't it? For whatever reason, the mileage just tends to put people off. So what we're going to do in this episode is look at the pros and cons to buying what many would now call a high mileage Porsche 996. Right, okay, back at Wrightune. Chris, thanks for your time as always.
No problem.
2 996s on the ramps here. Perfect time to talk about 996s. I've said previously on this channel, 996s don't buy low mileage one because it's still got so much of its kind of life still ahead of it, so problems are yet to be unearthed.
First of all, with like the IMS and things, if it's done the higher mileage, there's a good chance then that it's probably not going to fail, or potentially you or a previous owner's already changed the bearing. But no, honestly, they tended to seem to fail. Low mileage was done under warranty, sort of 20,000 mile. I'd be more concerned about my bearing if my car was low mileage and hadn't been changed.
And this is what I mean, you know, the big thing is people shouldn't be put off a high mileage 996.
You can get a good one and you get a bad one, and one that's done a lot of miles and it looks perfect underneath, and one that's done 30,000 miles and it looks like it's been, you know, attacked by the sea and salt water. It's difficult to say, so yeah, I wouldn't just be looking at the clock all the time and going, well, it's done low mileage, so it's going to be fine.
You'd said off camera to me that with the 996 you've got to budget £1,000 a year for upkeep.
Yeah, with us, I'd say, obviously, because I see the bills, with us, general maintenance about £1,000 a year. If you don't, or you don't, and I'm not saying that they need that doing, but that's what I would estimate or recommend. But for example, this one here on the ramp, not a lot's been done to it. The owner actually commented that it's remarkable how little it's cost him, and that's because where it was going before, it hasn't been looked after, and now a lot of the running gear and underside brake pipes, brakes, etc. have had to be replaced. Most people like to keep on top of it, and it's more manageable. Yeah. And really, £1,000 a year to run a Porsche is not too bad, I don't think.
Chris and other industry specialists are keen to point out that common 996 problems are age rather than mileage related, as even the youngest 996 is now 15 years old. Condition then really is key. So what should you pay particular attention to? The following points should all be checked, and that's regardless of mileage.
Okay, right, starting at the back of the car, one of the problems that they do suffer from is corrosion on the exhaust. Leave obviously had yours done recently-ish, but if you can see from over here, this is a common problem with 996. If you come around here, you can see better. This is all coming apart and it's going to need to be replaced. It just depends on corrosion. Let's go back to your car.
The 996 can be prone to the odd drop of oil, so check around the chain tensioner seals and rear main seal area. A little bit of misting isn't anything to worry about short term, but anything more will require further investigation.
These arms, etc., get corroded. Really, the corrosion on the suspension arms is just mainly unsightly. It's more the fact that the bushes and things are perishing and getting old. As you said, getting a 100,000 mile car and it to be rattling and banging and creaking and the ride not to be as good and not to be as precise with the steering. Brake pipes here, as you can see, where there's like it's in the fitting, I think that holds in the moisture, and then they tend to get corroded. And some of them, worst case scenario, this brake pipe here, one of the brake pipes here, goes up over the top of the gearbox. Yeah. And then we've had to have the engine and gearbox out of that car to change that. Good idea to get if your car's going for service, to get these under trays taken down, because the brake pipe that runs along this sill here is hidden here, and it can be hiding some real nasty corrosion on the brake pipe. Basically, we've had it before where the car's come in just for an MOT and you've applied the brake on the roller and it's burst on the roller, and it's been in this one here that's been hidden. It hasn't been able to be monitored. Shells themselves are really, really good, unless it's had an accident or something. Very rarely see any corrosion on them. They're really, really strong. AC pipes down this side. You've got a leak here. You can see some dye coming out. Quite common. There's an O-ring there, and then also there's a steel bolt going into this part's aluminium, and then that can react with each other.
A mixture of metals, such as alloy on steel parts, is a recipe for corrosion, and this is prominent on 996s. The more corrosion present, the more labour to free stuff up, so again, condition is key.
This is a typical problem that you have with them. The condenser sits in front of the radiators at the front, and the leaves and detritus get caught in between, and it just gets terrible corrosion. As you can see here on this radiator, it's bowed at the bottom, and it's leaking from here. In here, there's a couple of drains, and they'll be in the other side as well. They can get blocked with leaves, etc., mud, and then that can cause it to leak, usually into the car. And on the 996, the alarm control unit is underneath the passenger seat, and if it does get wet in there, it's usually, by the time you realise it, it's too late.
Contrary to popular perception, some experts believe a high mileage 996 might actually make for the safer bet, as it's used regularly and therefore not likely to have had any service or maintenance work missed, which is something Chris echoes. But has he got any more top tips for buying?
I would be looking at the history and to see what's been done, and if anything's been flagged up before and not done. Test drive to see any horrendous rattles or bangs, any obvious engine problems or gearbox selection issues or whines. I would always recommend, if you're going to buy a second-hand car, no matter what you're told by whoever's selling it, you need to get somebody independent of both parties to look at it on a ramp, and somebody's unbiased. Look at it, and then also be able to plug the diagnostics in to see if there's anything nasty. And then you can go into something with a much better idea of what you may or may not need.
Yeah, that's the thing with a 911. You need to get it in the air. There's no point having a poker at it on someone's drive.
Exactly. They can look absolutely fantastic on the ground if they're polished.
Yeah. Bit of tyre shine.
Yeah. It'd almost be better the other way around. If it needed a bit of body work and maybe a wheel refurb, it's going to be a lot cheaper in the long run than a gearbox rebuild or something.
I've got one last question for you. So, air-cooled cars around 120,000 miles, they're looking for rebuilds, aren't they? Yeah. Is that the same, or should it be the same with the M96?
I mean, does yours use any oil?
A tiny little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes you might get some knock-in or some wear. When you have the filter change on a service, it's good to ask your technician to cut the filter open, see if there's any metal in there. The other thing is obviously oil consumption. The 997 is more well known for burning oil because of scored bores, but they do it as well on the 996. So just monitor it. If it's not using any oil, don't panic. It's probably not got scored bores.
So that is pretty much everything you need to know about buying a high mileage 996. What have we learnt today? Well, there are 3 things you need to consider when buying a high mileage 996. Condition, condition, and condition. The good news is find a car that's been properly cared for and maintained throughout its life, and it shouldn't cost any more to run a 996 with 6 figures on the clock than it would a low mileage example. And as we said at the start of the video, a high mileage example might actually represent a better proposition for someone that wants to drive their car because it's already had so much of its life already on the road, and the chances are previous problems such as IMS and scored bores would have already been sorted. The very best thing I can recommend is to get an independent inspection on the car. Get the car in the air, have a good look all around it. You'll get a really good understanding for what sort of money has been spent on the car previously, and most importantly, what sort of bills you can expect coming up. The other thing to note as well is engines. It's not like an air-cooled engine that needs a rebuild between 100 and 120,000 miles. Again, proper care and maintenance, and the M96 engine in the back of these cars can run for a very long time indeed. That's about all you need to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe as usual. I'll see you in another video. For now, better get some more miles on the clock.